The wind howled like a wounded coyote across the plains that Christmas Eve, snow riding the dark in sharp needles. When the knock came to the ranch house door, a small sound fighting a big storm, Tom Calder had been pouring coffee with hands scarred by rope and iron, thinking only of the fire and the long night. When he heard it again, 3 soft knocks, unsure but stubborn, the kind that did not belong to the wind, he reached for his coat and gun out of habit. The West teaching men to be ready for trouble, but something in his chest tightened, because no trouble ever knocked that careful, and no decent soul came calling this late, unless need rode with them. He opened the door, and the cold rushed in like a living thing, carrying snow and moonlight, and there stood a little girl no taller than his belt buckle, her bonnet white with frost, her cheeks red as winter apples, her eyes wide and brave and scared all at once. She clutched the doorframe with stiff fingers and looked up at him. "Mister," she said, "my mama is sick in our wagon." The words came out in a rush, like she feared they might freeze in her mouth. Tom felt the world shift under his boots, because the plains were cruel to the weak, and mercy was often the only law left standing. He knelt so his face met hers, lowering his voice the way men do around frightened horses and children. "Where is your wagon, little miss?" She pointed into the dark, past the cottonwoods and the frozen creek. "We were headed west. Papa died last spring. Mama says we keep going." Her voice wavered but did not break, the kind of strength learned too early. Tom stood and grabbed the lantern, shouting for his hired hand, Eli, who had been nursing a bad leg by the fire. "Saddle up," he said. "Christmas or no Christmas, someone needs us." The snow fought them every step, the lantern swinging like a lonely star, until they found the wagon huddled near the creek bank, canvas stiff with ice, one wheel sunk deep. Inside lay the woman, pale as the snow itself, her breathing shallow, lips cracked. Tom touched her forehead and felt the heat of fever. She whispered something he could not hear. The little girl climbed in beside her, holding her hand. "Mama, I found help." Tom swallowed hard, because he had seen men die quiet and alone. But seeing a child try to be strong was a different kind of hurt. They moved fast, Tom and Eli lifting the woman with care, wrapping her in blankets that smelled of smoke and home, carrying her through the storm toward the ranch house, the little girl trotting beside them, refusing to be left behind. When they reached the fire, warmth bloomed across frozen skin. Tom sent Eli for the doctor in town despite the storm, and set water to boil, remembering things his own mother had taught him before she passed. How to tend the sick when there was no one else. The woman stirred and opened her eyes, fear flashing until she saw her daughter safe. "Thank you," she whispered. Tom nodded. "You are among friends now, miss. Rest easy." The fire cracked and popped, shadows dancing on the walls like old spirits. The little girl sat on the floor with her back to the hearth, watching every move Tom made, as if memorizing him, as if measuring whether the world could still be trusted. He poured her a cup of warm milk, and she took it with both hands, smiling for the first time. Outside the storm raged on, but inside the ranch house something softer took hold. The smell of coffee and stew, the low murmur of hope. Tom felt a pull he had not felt in years, a sense that this night was not meant to be spent alone, that the West, for all its hardness, still left room for grace. He looked at the small Christmas wreath hanging crooked over the mantel, a habit kept from better days, and wondered if miracles still knew the way to lonely doors. As the clock crept toward midnight, the little girl leaned against his knee and yawned, her courage finally tired. Tom rested a hand on her shoulder, steady and sure, whatever came with the dawn, sickness or snow or the long road ahead, he had already made a promise without words. No one who knocked on his door would face the cold alone. Not on Christmas Eve, not ever again. Christmas morning came slow and gray, the storm easing but not forgiving, the world outside wrapped in white silence. Inside the ranch house the fire still burned low and steady. Tom had not slept. He sat in the chair by the bed where the woman lay, listening to her breathing, counting each rise and fall like it was a debt the world still owed her. The little girl slept curled on the rug with a blanket pulled to her chin, one hand clutching a wooden horse Tom had carved years ago and never given to anyone. The clock ticked loud enough to sound like judgment. Eli returned near dawn with Dr. Harris bundled in furs, his beard crusted with ice. The doctor bent over the woman, checking her pulse, her eyes, her breath. "Fever," he said low, "pneumonia likely. The road and the cold have done her no favors." Tom asked the question without dressing it up. "Will she live?" The doctor hesitated. which was answer enough. "I will do what I can," he said. "But she needs rest, warmth, and prayer might not hurt either." Tom nodded. "Because out here men trusted skill, but never ruled out mercy." The woman woke later, coughing hard enough to shake her thin frame. Tom held her shoulders steady while the doctor mixed medicine. Her eyes found his, sharp despite the weakness. "My daughter," she said. Tom turned so she could see the little girl still sleeping, safe and whole. "You saved her," the woman whispered. Tom shook his head. "She saved herself, had the grit to knock on a stranger's door." The woman smiled faintly, then closed her eyes again. Slipping back into restless sleep by noon, the house smelled of broth and wood smoke. Eli had gone to tend the horses and clear the worst of the drifted snow. Tom coaxed the little girl awake and set her at the table. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lucy," she said, her voice soft but steady. "And my mama is Anna." Tom nodded. Those names settled into the house like they belonged there. Lucy traced the grain of the table with her finger. "Will mama be better?" Tom chose his words careful. "The way you choose a trail through bad country. The doctor is helping her, and she is strong. And she has you." Lucy nodded, accepting that as truth enough. While Anna slept, memories rode in on the quiet. Tom stood by the window watching the snow melt slow on the fence rails, remembering another winter long ago. Another woman coughing in a bed just like that one. His wife Mary, gone before her time, taken by fever, and a world that moved on without apology. He had buried her under cottonwoods and learned to live with silence. The ranch had been quiet ever since. Too quiet. Now the quiet felt different, like it was holding its breath. Anna worsened by evening, her fever spiking, her breathing ragged. Lucy sat beside her, humming a tune Tom did not know, something her mother must have taught her. The doctor returned with more medicine, more instructions, less certainty. Tom paced the room, useless hands clenching and The fire popped loud, and outside a crow called, sharp and lonely, like an omen. Eli crossed himself without shame. Even hard men reached for faith. When the night grew heavy near midnight, Anna stirred, calling out names from another life. Her hand reaching, Tom caught it and held on, steady as a post. Lucy leaned in close. "Mama, I am here. I am not scared." Though her eyes shone bright with tears, Anna looked at her, really looked, and smiled through the pain. "My brave girl," she whispered. Tom felt something crack inside him, not break, but open, like ground thawing after a hard freeze when the fever finally eased toward morning. Just a little, enough to let hope breathe. The doctor sighed and sat back. "It is a good sign," he said. "Not a promise, but a sign." Tom nodded and thanked him, seeing Lucy fall asleep at last with her head on the bed. One small hand still wrapped around her mother's. The ranch house, once empty, now held life in every corner, and Tom Calder knew, as sure as he knew the shape of the land, that whatever came next, this Christmas had already changed him. The days after Christmas unfolded slow and careful, like a man learning to walk again after a bad fall. Anna's fever broke in fits and starts, never all at once, but enough to let color creep back into her cheeks. Dr. Harris came and went, each visit leaving a little more hope behind. Lucy took it upon herself to help, fetching water, feeding the fire, whispering stories to her mama. The ranch house answered her with warmth, with sound, with life. Tom watched it all with quiet wonder, as if the land itself had decided to soften. One afternoon, Anna woke clear-eyed and asked for soup. Real soup, not the thin broth she had barely swallowed before. Tom laughed, the sound surprising him as much as anyone. That laugh rolled through the room like sunlight. Lucy clapped her hands. "See, Mr. I told you Mama was strong." Anna smiled at Tom. "Strength only goes so far," she said. "Kindness carried us the rest of the way." Tom shrugged like it was nothing, but the truth sat heavy and good in his chest. When Anna was well enough to sit by the fire, she told her story, how she and her husband had dreamed of Oregon, of land and clean beginnings, how sickness took him on the trail and left her with a wagon and a child and too much sky. "I could not stop," she said. Stopping felt like dying too. Tom nodded, understanding that kind of stubborn hope. The West was built on it, and broken by it. To Lucy explored the ranch like it was a kingdom, following Eli, asking 100 questions, riding the old mare slow and careful. Tom carved another wooden horse for her, better than the first. She named it Star, because it had come to her on a night full of them. Tom felt the ranch breathe easier. Fences seemed straighter, the wind less sharp. as if the place had been waiting for laughter when the wagon was repaired and the road called again. Anna stood by it with mixed eyes, grateful and afraid. "I do not know how to repay you," she said. Tom looked out across the land. "Maybe you already have," he said. Lucy hugged him, fierce and sudden, promising to remember him always. The promise cut deep, because Tom knew roads took people away as often as they brought them the morning they planned to leave. Anna did not climb into the wagon. She stood still, looking at the ranch, at the smoke rising straight into the cold air, at Tom waiting. "Maybe the road does not always mean moving forward," she said softly. "Maybe sometimes it means knowing when to stay." Tom said nothing. He just waited, like the land does. Giving space for choice, Anna took Lucy's hand and stepped back toward the house, tears bright but steady. "If you would have us," she said, "we would like to stop here, at least a while." Tom nodded once. That was all the answer needed. The ranch, once empty, claimed them without fuss, without papers or promises, just the quiet agreement of people choosing each other. That night, the fire burned high, Lucy asleep between two chairs, Anna knitting by lamplight, Tom staring into the flames. Christmas long past, but its miracle still breathing. Out on the plains, the wind kept moving, as it always would. But inside that ranch house, a door once knocked on in fear had opened into something lasting, something earned, something like home.